Assistant Director of Communications, Josh White. We'll go straight to questions.
Being here. First, I want to thank all the fans that made it out there. Again, every time we've been on the road, we've had a tremendous turnout, and our players feel it. Really grateful for it. It's always a game changer when you see your people there supporting. So I want to thank them and looking forward to seeing them at Hard Rock on Saturday. But it was certainly a hard fought and a massive road win for us. Conference play against a really talented team, good coaches, good scheme, and our guys found a way to just keep responding and play together as a team. And they're driven and certainly found a way to get it done. And preparations began immediately on Florida State upon our arrival in Miami. So that being said, questions, please.
Does this have a different sort of feel than a normal, I should say, past Miami-Florida State games, in that you have so many guys in key roles for you who are not from Florida and have not been part of this series before? Does that, for them, it's just another big game. Do you have to educate guys on what this means, or do you kind of like that approach that some of these guys just play the game that's in front of them and don't get wrapped up in the circus around it?
Right. No, you'd be surprised how many guys you would think wouldn't be familiar with it, but that are familiar with it. I think it's important that we always educate our players on the history of the University of Miami and such a insanely awesome rivalry like we've always had with Florida State. And at the same time, making sure that the main thing stays the main thing so that we don't spill over into emotional play and stuff that doesn't contribute to winning. So, but the response and the excitement is what you can imagine. I don't think the rivalry and the juice and energy behind it will ever change. It's Florida State, Miami, and certainly looking forward to a great challenge and a great opportunity.
Does it change the dynamic at all in that this is a rarity in that when one team, there's been very few instances of a team being 6 wins ahead of the other when you guys go head to head. We all know this has got to be their Super Bowl. This is their chance to do something with their season. What does that add to Saturday?
I don't think any, and I could say as a player, we never looked at the record of anyone we were playing. It just, whatever the record of any team is in this rivalry, you're going to get the best version of them, and they're going to get the best version of you. And that's what makes the game so incredibly intense and physical, and that's why so many guys come here to play in that game.
Mario, there's been a lot of TV cameras have found Michael Irvin on the sidelines a lot the last couple of weeks. I know X talked about talking to Michael Irvin and Santana Moss, Reggie Wayne. How important is it to have the alumni around, and have the alumni, supporting the program, publicly, openly, very excited about things?
Yeah, it's again, that's another reason so many guys came here for so many years, was because of that. That type of mentorship is invaluable. Imagine getting mentored by Hall of Famers that have done it at the highest level, to the best of what most anyone can remember. So, and it comes from the right place, comes from the heart, and I think it also is an indication of how much the University of Miami means to the guys that went here, and that, they're feeling very positive about the direction of the program and that they want to be present and involved.
First of all, these last 3 games, 2 come from behind victories, and then this past Saturday holding off a team like Louisville. What has that shown you about this year's team compared to the ones that you had in previous years? Their ability to not only come from behind and hold off a team like Louisville?
Well, a lot growth, right? I mean, you always look at those stages. People always talk about how in stage 1 of a program or year 1, typically if you have to redo things, it's a year where you take some really hard losses, and then in your second year you're more competitive and some of them are close, and you win some and you lose a couple, and then after that you start winning, sometimes by a little bit, and then eventually as you go on you become a more sustainable, perennial type of program, right? And so these guys, I think it's what we've always talked about. They love to work. There's a high level of trust and confidence due to, I would say, just what's being earned out on the practice field on a daily basis, all the way since spring, and their time and effort in the weight room since January, and the fact that their approach to work now, because we demand a lot of them, seems to just, it gets better, and you could confront demand. Our team, our coaches can, from each other, can get the most out of each other because we all have the same mindset, the same goals. So it's we all recognize we have a long way to go, and we're excited to get to work on getting there.
Well, 3 days, it was 4 days ago, so I apologize for asking about something that's old news now, but it's big enough news. On Friday, they announced that Joe Echeverria is no longer the interim, that he's obviously now the president going forward. What's that mean to you? What's that mean to the program and just the university as a whole? Because we all know what Joe means to a lot of people around here. What was your reaction when you heard that it's done?
Well, I mean, it starts with him being an elite human being and a legitimate difference maker and impact guy. I mean, game changer for so many reasons. And he's a guy that's poured his heart and soul into the University of Miami. You know, I can honestly say I would not have hopped on a plane and come to Miami without the presence of our president, our current president, Joe Echeverria. Grateful to him for all that he's done for not only for athletics, but for the entire university. I mean, the trajectory of this university being an elite private institution, medical systems, everything, it's off the charts. There is no comparable out there. And he leads that charge with so many of his colleagues. And again, just a total difference maker and a game changer for Miami.
Mario, A.J. Allen, you touched on a little bit post-game Saturday, but how would you see him handling biding his time, having to wait for his opportunity, and just how he's been handling everything, and then to see it pay off on Saturday for him?
Well, you know, that's hard to handle, right? Because he's a really good player, and he's a really good person. And he's a tough dude, and he works really hard. He's a competitor, you know? And we were fortunate where our offensive line was part of it, but that our running back room just got better and better, and we brought in some really good players, and he's one of those really good players. So no one in there has done anything wrong to earn less reps. It's just that sometimes some guys push a little bit more ahead than others. But all week long, and credit to Coach Merritt. Coach Merritt in the middle of the game said, and he said it all week, this guy he's running angry. He's just really getting downhill. He's being physical. He's seeing things very well. You know, he's got experienced eyes. We talk about guys like Jalen Rivers. He's got those old eyes. He's seen a lot. And what we were running really fit his style. And credit to Coach Merritt, he brought it up to myself and to Coach Dawson, Coach Mirabal, and it's like, yeah, man, let's go with it. And it provided a great change-up, man. He went in there, and he was a factor in the game. So certainly has earned himself more time, and I'm really happy for him because he really does deserve all the good things that come his way.
Does that surprise you at all that the running backs, just to follow up on that angle, that Mark, Damian, and whoever gets called upon, they're ready to go when their number's called, and the 3-4 guys, they could all be workhorse backs anywhere, and they've had to share the workload here, and it looks like they're reveling in that. Does it surprise you how well kids have handled?
I think it is in this day and age, but then again, sometimes it's not. And then it starts with a relationship in that room, and I think the level of respect that's demonstrated on a daily basis. Because you could tell, right? You could tell when, and we've all been there, right? You're competing for a spot, you look at it and you're like, I'm a piece of that guy or whatnot, and you watch that room, and the way they express their competitive character is by when they get their reps, they go, which has made it very difficult in distinguishing, okay, who really gets to go first or it's really hard. And they've made it that way, so they've taken competition the right way, all right? They've taken it and not as a threat, as a way of getting better and making the team better. And they ran really hard the other day against a really good and talented defense. You see the excitement it causes among the offensive linemen when they do so. So tremendous. They're an incredible example of how competition can make everybody better, and their bodies feel good. They feel fresh. Their legs are strong. So, hopefully we'll keep getting better and better in that department.
Damian drag guys kind of probably a good 10 yards down the field, and then the entire O-line goes and gets him another 5 or 6 by continuing to move the pile. Yeah. There's been a lot of highlights around here this year, but for you, how did that play?
I like that stuff the best, of course, But I pointed out that a couple of the receivers did stick their little narrow butts in there, and got involved as well to help it out a little bit. But it's good to see. It's we needed a performance like that out of our backfield. They responded well all week long with good practice, and when you watch film, there's other opportunities that we had that could have really opened up the game a little bit more in that department. So again, we got a lot of work to do, and we're playing against a really good defensive front and a defense that, last Friday night, held their opponent to 3 of 16, 17 on third down, and is really big and massive and powerful up front. So we have got to be better this week in practice for it to show up on Saturday.
On Saturday, you guys moved Jalen inside and put Mario Bell back at left tackle. What do you like about that lineup on the line?
Well, I think going back to Coach Mirabal and what he does, he cross-trains everybody. And Markel Bell has earned playing time, and Markel Bell needs to continue to develop at a high level, and he did. He was blocking maybe some of their best players as effectively or more than anybody else on the field. And also, I think, Jalen and Matt McCoy, we were going to move him around too. All those guys, Jalen, Matt McCoy, about 4 others can play 4 to 5 positions. The other guys can play 2, maybe 3. And we want to do that more and more because we've seen that in practice. The chemistry of that particular lineup has worked just as well as the other one. So we went with it, and it worked out really well.
Do you feel like that was the best run blocking performance up front of the season, or?
It was really good. We've had some other ones. Sometimes, when you live in a little bit of the RPO world, there's some opportunities that never come to fruition just because the ball gets spit out. I think it was certainly one of the better ones, but again, lots of room for improvement, and those guys know it, so right back to work.
You mentioned FSU's D-line. What else shows up on tape when you see FSU?
Well, I think everything. I study the defensive side first. What you see is just a really talented team that is, again, they're about as talented in most of the key positions in the front 7 as you'll see, and the secondary is big, long, they're fast. They play man coverage as good as anyone that we've seen. They mix it up pretty well as well. They got a wide variety of pressure and stunt packages that go with it. And then I think their offensive line, I know they might have had a guy hurt or two, but they're another group that's really big, a highly recruited class that is really strong and powerful and, has had some really, really strong moments. And again, all I see is a really good football team, and looking forward to a great game.
We always talk about quarterbacks and receivers finding symmetry and, clicking with one another.
Mm-hmm.
With Ruben back, he and Simeon are they getting a rhythm together as well? Because it seemed like they were doing kind of whatever they wanted at times.
They played at a high level. They really did. I think they fed off each other, almost competed. I think Mesidor could be thrown in that mix as well. Akeem has really just volunteered his body to do whatever we asked him to do, inside, outside, nose tackle, 3, 5, 7, 9. And we're going to continue pushing that group. I know Coach Taylor's done a really good job with those guys, developing them, and we can get more out of them. We can. There's more to be had there, and we're gonna push and test them this week because they're capable, and I think Saturday was an example of some of the things we can do.
The explosiveness of the offense is obvious, but I want to ask you about the way you guys are controlling games on offense with time of possession. Are you in some ways as excited about that element as you are the explosive plays you guys are generating and limiting negative plays to that side of things on offense?
I don't know if excited and time of possession are synonymous, Right. I think we're well balanced. We're starting to, become a well balanced offense, but we're also not afraid to be aggressive and take whatever the defense provides opportunities for. I think the fact that we can change gears it benefits us tremendously. We sometimes have gone tempo, sometimes have huddled, sometimes have speed huddled, sometimes have increased the tempo of how we get in and out of the huddle. So I think if you can control the game, it's always a plus for your team. It wasn't something that we set out to do, and not in most of the situations we've been in this year until late in a couple of the games that we've had, but it's certainly a very positive sign.
After having a chance to watch the film of Saturday's game, what are some of the things that you and the staff have identified on defense? Obviously, Louisville has an explosive offense in their own right, but what are some of the things on defense that you guys identified as things you need to work on or correct?
Yeah, well, we some guys tackled really well, and some others didn't. Leveraging the football has got to be at a premium, and really communication. We had some breakdowns in alignment and assignments that we were good at early in the year, and everything we saw on film. Number one, there's certainly an urgency to get fixed, and I'm talking about by players and coaches. What you don't see is just a lack of effort. You don't see that. That would be concerning. What you see is guys trying to bust their butts, and I think the first thing you got to do as a coach is you own it and find a way to teach it better so guys can really just cut it loose and not think and play. That's number one. And then number two, when you get to that level, you also have to put some of the onus on the players. Hey, it's teach and learn. Those are two-part system, right? And we've got to, through practice, through every ounce of preparation, walkthrough meetings, you name it, provide the guidance, the teaching, the mentorship, the confidence to be able to go out there and really cut it loose and play fast, like we have shown in so many instances. And the ones where we haven't, certainly we didn't look good, but we feel like we do address them, we attack them dead on with transparency and honesty, and we know where we got to get better, and we're all over it.
You obviously have the unique perspective of being a guy who played in this rivalry and a guy who coached this rivalry, and you've seen more of these games than most people.
Mm-hmm.
Are there moments that you automatically go back to as the moments that define this series, or can you even allow yourself to go there this week when you're locked in?
Man, I can't publicly in my mind. I mean, scary thing, this mind, you know what I mean? But yeah, it was the best days always as a player. When the schedule came out as a player, you always made sure that day was circled because it was so different, right? How many games we used to have? 10 or 11? I forget. In the Stone Age, I forget how many games we used to have, but the caliber of player that you were going to be playing against, the familiarities of some of the guys on the other team, you knew what that game was going to be about, right? Everybody was going to be strapping on ice bags and eating Advil, to make sure to get over the physicality of the game. And but so many unbelievable memories, and honestly, this is the most I've thought. These last 30 seconds have been the most I thought about, and the most I will, just because the job at hand. I mean, we've got a really, really good and talented football team coming in here, and we got to play our best football, and we got a lot of work to do to get there.
Speaking of dealing with physicality and injuries and stuff, saw Damari kind of walking around a bit on the field on Saturday. Is there a timetable for when you might get a chance to come back? Is it sometime during the regular season, or is it still unknown?
It'll be sometime during the regular season, towards the back end. I think the last couple of games is realistic. That guy's a really good player now. That guy, it's a 6'1" plus corner at 200 pounds that runs like the wind and is physical, and he's chomping at the bit to get back out there. It's awesome to see the way he attacks his rehab and the way he stays engaged and continues to just learn and get better and help some of the other guys, and then to see him, being able to walk around, and he's already working on the what's that machine called? That machine. And he's really moving and making a lot of progress towards coming back, man. And I'm sure his teammates can't wait for him to be healthy again.
You have an update on Malik Bryant?
He's good to go. So Malik got sick last week. Came down with just an awful virus, and we just couldn't get him back in time, and we didn't want to put him on the plane and spread that thing, and but he's good to go. Body weight checks out. He's strong. He's ready, and he's also one we missed last week. Now he's played really good football for us, so looking forward to getting him back.
You've obviously seen some really good quarterbacks, some really good offensive scheming in the last 3 games, but the numbers also probably pretty shocking as far as what you want to see out of your defense. What's the level of concern right now, or is there not much of a
well? Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's a matter. I don't feel concern. Feel urgency. It's almost for a fact that we're better than some of the things we have shown. And that we need to be consistent in showing we got to get there, and you get there together. During the year, the one thing that really stands strong in our program is there's no division from within. You can't have it. this football stuff, I mean, you see week after week, man, it is absolutely insane the way that some of these games go. And so you've got to take the fact that, you know, we may win some games 52-45, and we might have to win one 3-2. You know, we don't know how it's going to come and when it's going to come. So until then, together, move forward and press on and just find a way to get better. I guess it's that simple. Just get better. Just get better, you know.
Is it kind of crazy to you that?
What's that?
Is it kind of crazy that 319 yards and 4 touchdowns from your quarterback is an average day?
Yeah, well, I guess we'll have to live with average. You know. Good. Guys, thank you very much. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
So Mario just said, I guess we'll have to live with average Cam Ward only throwing for 319 yards and 4 scores. I mean, when you have a quarterback, I mean, that's performed the way he's performed. How difficult is it to have a balanced offense and go, you know, shift to the running game when you know you have that in the garage?
I mean, balance is a little bit. I mean, I don't know what balance really means. I mean, I've never viewed balance as 50-50. I've always thought of balance as more of like, if they're giving you a heavy box, you throw it. You know, if they stack the box every time and you throw it 100% of the time, then that's probably what it took to win the game. But it is, you know, mixing up run pass is vital to our success, to be honest with you, because you don't want, in today's football, D-line can rush the passer. Like, that's what changed over probably 10 or 15 years, is like, you know, used to D-line stop the run and rush the passer. Now they rush the passer and stop the run on the way kind of mentality. So you have to keep them off balance, because we've faced a lot of elite pass rushers. This week's no different. You know, they have 2 edge rushers that are really, really good. And so it's our job to keep them off balance, you know, and we have the ability to run it. So, you know, it obviously helps.
Someone who was around Sam Brown before he got here,
Yeah.
What was it like to see him have the game like he had on Saturday and finally seem like starting to get into a rhythm?
It was awesome. I mean, I've been, you know, having some one-on-one conversations with him about just letting the game come to you, right? I think that one thing that people don't really think about at times is when you go to a new place, it takes a little time sometimes, you know, especially when he wasn't necessarily involved in the stuff we were doing in the summer. And so it takes a little more time than you think to feel comfortable and to end up playing instinctively like you can. And so, you know, that what I saw Saturday with him breaking tackles and being hard to tackle and just being big and hard to tackle, right? Playing with a high level of confidence is what Sam can do. That's his potential.
The thing back at the beginning of the season that you don't want one 100-yard guy, but you love 6 50 catch guys. The fact that you have 4 of them, the 4 receivers are, it seems like there is a good distribution. Obviously, X is X, but everybody is getting an opportunity, taking advantage of it. Just how much does that help in terms of game planning and scheming when you do have so many options that for the defense has to face?
Yeah, I think it helps in 2 ways. One is you can keep people fresh through the course of the game. And so at the end of the game, you know, guys are running at top speed, playing 100%. But ultimately, the defense can't focus on one guy, you know. So I just like distribution. I like the ball being distributed around. You know, ultimately, there's going to be years where it's lopsided. That's just the way it is. I mean, I don't dictate where the ball is thrown. I mean, that's really up to the quarterback, unless it's like a screen or something, you know. So in the pass game, the ball goes to where the flow of the defense allows it to go. So, you know, it's good to see the ball get distributed around. I like that. You know, I think that's tougher for the defense to defend.
What they do, well, I shouldn't ask what they did, but tight ends just, I don't think you had a target
We had, they had some, it's like everything. I mean, they're in every route, and they were open some. We missed them a few times. I mean, Elijah had some space on a couple of them, but the ball went somewhere else, and so that's going to happen. It's going to happen sometimes. I mean, there's going to be days where they catch 6, 7, 8 balls and days where they don't catch any. And the key is to find ways to affect the game without, which they do, And so I thought one of the biggest plays in the game is when he threw it to Elijah on the seam route and Elijah broke it up, saved a pick. That was a huge play in my opinion in the game. And that was awesome because ultimately when you do make bad decisions and the ball's up and the defense has the priority on it and the position on it, right? You got to become a defender and just do whatever it takes to maintain possession of the ball. And I thought that play it really was a reflection of how that kid's played all year, doing the dirty work and just like effort, right? And, that was awesome because that saved a drive.
Since you got here, I guess what'd you learn last year from this rivalry that maybe you didn't know about how this one might be a little different than most rivalries?
Well, it's epic, right? I mean, look, I grew up in the South. I watched this game from afar every year. And so those two logos being on the field, I mean, it is what it is. I don't think there's much that needs to be said about how they feel about us and we feel about them. I think, Coach Cristobal probably alluded to the fact that when teams with this level of rivalry play, the records really don't mean anything. We know it's going to be a dogfight. We know we're going to get their best. I mean, heck, we get everybody's best, right? I mean, everybody's kind of shooting for us, and we're fine with that. And we got to keep focusing on the future. In my opinion, is the key. And they're probably telling their guys the same thing: focus on the future, because no matter what happened the last 7 weeks, it really has nothing to do with this week. It really doesn't. Like, you look across the nation and statistically 50% of the teams are going to win and 50% of the teams are going to lose every weekend, right? And so we're just trying to stay on that other 50%. But, the way that odds are set up and everything don't always match the way the game plays out. It just doesn't.
Is it worth going back and looking at last year's games because you guys have so much personnel difference? They have obviously complete personnel difference, it seems like.
I did. I think schematically it's worth watching. I think schematically all those games are worth watching from last year and this year because coaches are creatures of habit, right? And so trying to get beads on why they do certain things versus certain offenses and why they did certain things versus us last year and trying to figure out like some tendency breaker deals that you might have led up to that game is crucial. So yeah, absolutely. I think watching those games, even though it's not exactly the same people, I think watching them is vital to the game plan. There
are a few staff members, obviously, who went to UM. Coach Cristobal, obviously, Kevin Beard, a few other staffers who went to UM. You ever catch them when you're talking to them about FSU? You're just like, I hate those guys. Like, just like under their breath.
Well, you ask them that, I wasn't fortunate enough to be talented enough to play at a place like this. So you have to ask those guys that. I'm blessed to be here now, and so, I feel the same way they do because we're all wearing the same logo.
And then a few times on Saturday, you guys shifted Jalen Rivers inside and Markel play left tackle. So what do you guys like about that lineup?
I just think Markel has shown we trust him, and so we have a handful of players that might not be starters, but we trust. And so those guys deserve playing time. They deserve to be out there. And ultimately you have to trust them, right? That's first. And then you got to put them out there and let them play. So I just think that rewarding guys that have shown that is very important. And there's look, across the board at every position is really the same. I mean, you look at AJ, for instance, he came in and gave us a huge spark at the end of the game. And so just keep playing, right? Keep practicing hard, keep playing, and when your number's called, take advantage of it because that's the narrative that needs to be sent weekly, and it is. And so and our guys have bought into that, and our guys' attitude's been great about it. Some guys might not get the time that they think they should get or people around them think they should get, but they know that it's more about we than me, right? It's more about the collective effort and trying to win the game than you getting yours. In our society, that's hard today. But ultimately, we have a group of guys that honestly have bought into the fact that no matter what happens on Saturday, if we go 1-0, then that is the most important thing, including number one. Like he's the leader of it, and so, he'll be the first to tell me coming off to the sideline that we're smashing them, keep running it, which is awesome. I love to hear that, right?
How's the development coming at quarterback? Obviously we don't get to see Emery and Reese and
Yeah.
How are those guys developing on the practice field? And what do you see as the outlook for that position here as you get closer to December, where you've got to make some obvious decisions whether you have a starter for next year?
Yeah, I think spring's going to be vital for that, right? Spring and camp is where reps are distributed heavily, right? When you get into the season, the starting quarterback's going to take the majority of the reps, and then there's going to be a handful of reps to get the backup ready. And then really the third guy takes very minimal, and he has to have mental reps, right? Mental reps are very, very crucial when you're in the season because not everybody's going to get those reps. So I do think those guys have taken advantage of their reps, and they prepare, and they must prepare like they're starting, right? They do. And they're in meetings, and they ask questions. They're in everything. They don't get the reps that Cam gets, obviously, because they're not the starter. And so, but this spring's going to be huge. Competition in the spring, that's going to dictate how things go from there.
With A.J. Allen, obviously, having that confidence to put him into a game like that, when Martinez and, Mark having a big game like that, just talk about that decision and just the impact he had kind of being that change of speed back.
Coach Merritt, you got to give that guy a ton of credit because I'm on the sideline and he comes up to me and he's just like, I think we need to put AJ in there. I think he's had a great week and I think he's going to give us a spark. And I trust all those guys to handle their rotations. I don't really, I might say something a few times, but ultimately they play the people, that's their job. They're the head coach of their groups. And so when he came to me, I trusted him. We put him in there and he did exactly what coach said he was going to do. So, but AJ practices extremely hard every week. Guys made a lot of plays here, and so it's a testament to him that he stays positive. And then when his number's called, he goes out there and he had 3 or 4 really huge plays for us.
That we're more than halfway through the regular season. Look at last game. I think Damian got 13 carries and Mark had 12. Maybe it was reversed. They both had under 15 carries. How important is it to keep that workload managed so that they're staying healthy? I know you guys want to play into December, into January. So
yeah.
Managing that workload, how important is that?
I think in running back it's extremely important because that's a very violent position. You got to do. I say that all the time with those guys, but their job description is heavy. They get hit at a lot of different angles than other players do. They have to take on blitzers, A gap, B gap. It's just like we need to spread out the damage in that group. And so I think that having a group of guys and having it more running back committee is vital towards the end of the year because you can stay healthy and God forbid, something happens, then somebody's ready. Somebody's got a lot of reps and they're ready, right?
Should have they embraced that? I know you talked about it a little bit, I think Mario talked about them all being happy with their role. How much have they embraced the fact that they may not be getting 25 carries a game, but they are staying healthy?
You'd have to ask them that. Their attitude's been awesome from my vantage point. I do preach that a lot, to be quite honest with you, because I know how our rooms are built, and they're going to keep being built that way. So I think it's vitally important to keep attitude first, keep team first, and keep me, in check a little bit, right? And so, everybody's attitude on a daily basis in that group and really in all the groups have been really, really positive. And so we haven't had any issues with that. And I think that, honestly, they enjoy seeing the other guy make plays. They appreciate that, and they all celebrate together, and it's the same way across the board, which is really good to see.
Those lines, Kind of along those lines, you know, we've all seen that Xavier's obviously having an unbelievable year on
Yeah.
the field, and he's always had leadership qualities. Just where's his, from what we don't see in practice and behind the scenes, just where's that leadership level with him grown in the year and a half that you've been with him?
Well, I mean, I think I've said about all you could say about him as far as his work ethic and grit. I do think, you know, when things are tight, people depend on him and he comes through. I think when you keep doing that time and time again, obviously your status on the team is high. But he's also, I do think one thing that he does really well is when he doesn't get the ball. And I really do. I mean, I think he runs routes he strains in every route, right? And when we ask that dude to come in and block, you see him, he's motioning in, he's blocking safeties, he's blocking Sam linebackers. I mean, and he takes pride in that too. And so if he didn't do those things, you know, the status would probably be a little different. But people see him doing everything, not just catching the ball 6 or 7 times or whatever, or making a big play, but he does all the gritty stuff too. And so if you look at everything, I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons why he's a special player, because it isn't about when you have the ball in your hand, in my opinion. It's about all those other things you do without the ball in your hand.
You haven't been within his whole career, obviously, but do you still see that, you know, the cliche chip on the shoulder in that
Yeah.
too small, too slow, too this, too that, and he has outkicked many of his rankings over the years?
Well, I mean, typically guys like that never lose that chip. They just don't. I mean, I think in 10 years, he's going to have that chip on his shoulder, because people play like Aaron Rodgers has that chip on his shoulder, you know, like guys like Baker Mayfield, because they didn't get recruited, right? Cam Ward, you know, I mean, those things at that point in time in your life, when you're 17 or 18 years old, and your whole life you've played a sport and people look at you a certain way, you never forget that. You know, that time in your life is just, you know, it's because it's the next step. You know, you're going from high school and it's like into the unknown a little bit. Everybody wants to know and feel good. And then when people look at you in a way that is a little bit different than the way you look at yourself, you don't forget that. And I think that's probably one of the times in your life that probably sticks with you the longest, that little bit of divide right there from high school to college. And so he'll never lose that. And that's part of, like, he don't need to lose it, to be honest with you. He does not need to lose that, because that's what makes him him.
You guys are top 10 in the country in a lot of stats, including points per game, obviously, which is the whole point. But I'm curious if there's a stat outside of points per game that you're particularly pleased with or impressed with that you guys have achieved this year?
Yeah, I like the fact that our yards per play is high, because, I mean, that's, you know, we've made an emphasis to be explosive. And so our yards per play is high, our total number of punts are low, and our third down is high. So that's probably 3 that you know, dictate you being on the field longer. And so yards per play is huge. I think, you know, that one is very telling of an offense, but the other 2 are telling of, like, keeping the ball on your side.
You guys are right now converting slightly over 60% of third downs, and I just did a quick look on CFB stats, and no team's done that for at least since 2016. Just what's been working so well on third down for you guys? How much of it is just setting yourselves up well? How much of it is scheme and play calling and performance? And I guess what's worked so well?
Well, it's not all scheme and play calling. I can tell you that, to answer that easily, because ultimately, you know, if you have, let's say you have 15 third downs in a game, you know, you don't always have that many, but, you know, what makes Cam special is he picks them up when we get covered. You know, really, that's what you need to happen on third down, because defenses spend a lot of time being exotic on third down, and, like, the run-pass ratio on third down's always skewed, meaning they know when you're going to throw it and they kind of know when you're going to run it. And you want to break those tendencies, which we did a couple times in the game and got them on 3rd and 6 and 3rd and 5. They did it a couple times to us too, and so when you break those tendencies, it kind of shows up. But ultimately, you know, when it isn't there, what happens? And I think that's vital to third down stats. It'd be interesting to go back and kind of see that percentage, you know, based on, okay, did the play map out perfectly, and like sometimes Restrepo or somebody's wide open and we hit it, right? And then sometimes nobody's open and we got to scramble and get the first down. And so that's probably the reason the third downs are higher, is because of the ability to extend plays, and when it's not there, to go get it, you know. Because ultimately, you know, I don't know if like this is completely obvious, but third down's the last play. And so you need to treat it as such. And so if you don't convert it, you don't get to play anymore. And so it needs to be a heightened sense of everything.
Is it still the last play? Because
No, sometimes that's a good point. It's a good point. And so sometimes it's not the last play. And one of the greatest quotes ever was, you know, Leach was asked one time why he went for it so much on fourth down. Do you know what he said? He said to overcome the disappointment of not getting it on third down. So it's typically what happens, you know, is like you get, you know, you don't get it and you're frustrated and you go for it. Well, the times we went for it were more like fourth and short, and like a couple of them backed up. I thought Coach Cristobal, you know, made a couple really aggressive, good calls to go for it when our team desperately needed it.
I know you said, but you don't see that very often, except this year it seems like you see it more and more and more. Teams aren't afraid of going for it on fourth down on their side of the field. Is that just where the game is? Because you know you got to score a bunch.
And I think that part of it might be that it's the flow of the game matters. You know, I mean, how both teams are doing offensively. I think you factor that in. You know, I mean, I do think looking at statistically, you know, 4th and 1, you should get, right? Like, I know you don't get it all the time, but like it's right there, right? So if you look at teams that historically have went for more fourth downs, have been like the academies, the option teams. Well, heck, if it's 4th and 1 or 2, they're going for it, because ultimately the way they play football, they're going to get 1 or 2 yards, you know, and they're going to keep everything rolling. So I think people have kind of looked at them through the years and been like, all right, well, I mean, you know, I mean, if we have a good scheme and we feel good about it, then 4th and 1 should be an aggressive call wherever, right? Unless it's just a situation in the game where it's like you can't do it, or like, you know, both offenses are stalling out, and like, you know, that the flow of the game is going to dictate some of those decisions too. And you have to ask Coach Cristobal that too. I mean, he's like, you know, he either gives me the, you know, thumbs up or thumbs down.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Coach.
So, Coach, when you watch, are there common miscues happening, I guess, over the last few weeks that you're seeing?
It's been different things. Yeah, I thought the third quarter kind of got some life back in them. You know, at that point we was up 13, and a bunch of things happened from there. Then, oh Lord, here we go. So, yeah, we got a big long run busted on us, and I think that kind of helped them out a little bit. Kind of got them momentum. And then from there on, it was kind of like every other series. We'd hold them, then they would come back with something. So went in at half 17, I think it was 17, they had scored. And then we came out the second half, and then we ended up scoring going up, and then, you know, kickoff return and just different things. And then all of a sudden we was in a ball game. So it was definitely an exciting one, but we had to work all the way through the game to try to get it done, and we got it done. So that's the most important thing.
When you look at FSU, you know, obviously the stats aren't good, but you don't. I think it's just. I don't think you do game plan. There's a lot of stuff they do that's correctable. They've had trouble with drops all year and stuff like that. When you look at the talent, just how much talent.
Yeah, they've got some talent. You know, dropped some balls. There's been some speed sweep miscues. There's just been some kind of crazy things happening to them, but they do have some talent. I think they're athletic up front. I think their tight ends are good. Their wide receivers can run. We'll just see at game time how many running backs they do have, but definitely good football team with players. You can't go by records. This is a rivalry game. It's Florida State versus Miami, so you got to expect the unexpected, and I'm sure we'll see some things we haven't seen before.
Saw a little bit of Zaquan Patterson on Saturday. Just what are your thoughts on how he played, and can we expect to see him a little bit more this season?
Yeah, I thought he played solid. I think the open date helped him. Probably play a little bit more this game, giving him in there. So I want to make sure when he goes in there that, that he's going in there in good situations. And I think he's earned the right to play at this point. And he just keeps getting better. So we'll start playing him more and more, and it's going to help on the back end, of course, giving some guys some breaks. So, I liked what I saw.
You guys practice against the #1 passing offense in the country every single day, so obviously you're getting a lot of reps in pass defense. What's kind of gotten away the last few weeks to where teams are having success throwing the ball against you?
Well, we probably played against the best receivers in the conference last week, beside ours. Cam, what he does when we go against them, he buys a lot of time, so you got to stay in coverage. So I think each team kind of gives you a different look. Some things, what they're doing, you may match up better even though they have good wideouts. It just kind of depends on their philosophy. I think Coach Brom's a great play caller. I thought the quarterback's probably the best one we played so far. We was able to get pressure on him late, which was good, but it all started up front. I think if you can stop the run early on and kind of eliminate that and force them to pass, and then you can have better defenses called. So it was kind of just a cat and mouse game for a little while in there until we knew they had to pass the ball.
And also, as a follow-up, and you would know the numbers better. I haven't researched the numbers, but it doesn't seem like you're getting to the quarterback the way you are accustomed to in your style of defense. And, what do you attribute that to?
Well, I don't know exactly what we're ranked. We're ranked pretty high in sacks right now, but people are smart. I mean, people aren't going to sit back there and hold the ball for a long period of time when you got Ruben Bain coming at you and Barrow and guys like that. So some alternate throws that they have, but if they're smart, they'll get rid of the ball quick. If you hold the ball, we got a better chance of getting to you. And some things they do don't allow you to pressure. They can get in certain formations that kind of dictate what you can do. So it's kind of here and there. But, I'd like to get to the quarterback as many times as I could. It definitely helps the back end.
With Ruben, what have you seen from him in the past couple games since he came back?
Explosive. I think he had like 8 hurries on the quarterback this last game. Just a physical force, and he's going to get better and better, of course. So I like the way our front's playing. Of course, the backers, we just got to make a couple of changes on the back end and some things, and I think we're headed, to where we need to be. We haven't played our best football, I don't think. Early on we played well against Florida early, then in conference play, people have been getting us a little bit, but what a great weekend to get back on track in this one.
Seems like Jaden Harris has, had some struggles the last couple of weeks. Just what have you seen from him? Things he needs to work on. How is his confidence feelings? I remember hearing from a few players that he's a confidence kind of guy. What have you seen from him? What does he have to?
Yeah, he's definitely a confidence guy. The better he plays early on, the better he is. But I think Zaquan will help with that. Getting a guy in there that can come in and make plays also kind of take a little bit of relief off of him, I think will help. So the more guys you can play, the better you can rest guys and kind of give breaks to guys.
How did Jadis perform?
He played pretty good, especially early on. They challenged him on a couple of deep balls, and he knocked them away. He definitely played better this game than the last, so he's continuing to get better. OJ's still playing good right now, and Porter had a really good game the week before, and that last week was pretty solid, so we just need to continue to get better on the back end with those guys. Thank you.
Simeon Barrow, yeah. I was say Simeon Barrow seems like he's really come into his own past couple of weeks. How vital of a weapon is he in being able to both stop the run and also, get from the interior of the line?
Yeah, it's really good, Hopefully they don't try to double team him, they keep single blocking him. So I think we have some guys up front that you can't just look at one guy. Then we got different guys that can get off of blocks. And so it's been really, really nice, him playing well. We'll need him to continue to do that.
Other than Zaquan and OJ, are any of the other young defensive backs showing you enough on the practice field that you feel here down the stretch that they can get increased reps?
A couple of them are playing special teams, but they're just not there yet. You know, we got to roll with what we got. What we got is what we got, man. You know, so we'll get better this week, and we'll put together a good game plan and give those guys the best chance to have success.
I know coaches would prefer that everybody just goes as hard as they can every week, but this week is different. We all know that. Are you seeing a little extra juice?
Well, we had a walkthrough today. I thought the walkthrough was really good. Tomorrow will be our big day of practice, so I'm sure we'll be very high in energy, coaches, players, but it's different, you know. Anybody that knows what a rivalry game looks like, it's just a little bit different when you get in that course of the week. But you want the process to be the same. You're not playing the game tomorrow. You know, you're going to play it on Saturday at 7 o'clock. So just keeping your composure, get better every day, but you should be excited this week.
Do you feel like there's a benefit to simplifying things ever to maybe help guys play faster if that could be?
We've tried to simplify, but the offenses don't simplify. The offense keeps changing. So, I mean, defense is different. You know, defense, you got to play to what you see. And sometimes on game day, it's the first time you see that. And you've got to be able to recall things from your past that you've seen before, you know, and have a feel for things. And I think that's some of our problems, you know, trying to simplify as much as you can, but you can't go into a war with a BB gun. You got to have bullets in that gun, you know. So, just try to get better with our eyes and do different things. If we tackle well, I think it solves a lot of problems. You know, if you can stop and limit the yards after catch or a run and not them break tackles and get guys down, you always got a chance to play that way. So it comes down to tackling, you know, on defense, and then you go from there.
What was your rivalry that, whether it was high school, college, player, past stops for you, what was the one that got you the most energized?
Growing up, I was a McNeese guy, of course, so there's a school down the road called Lafayette, but it used to be called USL. And that was a big rivalry game, of course. I didn't get to play in it because they stopped playing us. I don't know. We really just never had one. You know, there was a school, Monroe, their head coach, it came from Monroe to us, and that was a rivalry. But, you know, at Marshall, I guess it was App State. You know, it's whoever you have, you know, different games you played against, really. This one I know who it is. It's Florida State. It's all the state schools. It's Florida, so we're playing for the state championship this week.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Thank you.